Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you had a nice break. So we're going to start. And
Good afternoon and welcome back to our 9th annual Genocide and Human Rights Conference on Africa and the Diaspora. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste, and he's the second great Jean-Baptiste here in Chicago, because 243 years ago, you are related. 243 years ago, we had Jean-Baptiste Pont du Sable, the founder of the city of Chicago along the Chicago River. And here I am introducing someone in that lineage of greatness from the Black Pearl of the Caribbean, Haiti. Judge Jean-Baptiste is a son, a husband, and a father. He was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and immigrated to the United States at the age of 14. After high school, he matriculated into Princeton University in 1970 and graduating with a BA in political science and certification in African American history in 1974. At Princeton, he served as an officer of the Association of the Black Collegiate, and he was also a member of the Princeton soccer team. After college, he moved to Brooklyn, New York, and worked as an elementary school teacher, an adjunct professor, and as a director of special housing for NYC. His activism in New York included the African Liberation Support Committee, the Committee Against Dictatorship in Haiti, the Mobilization Committee Against Police Brutality, and others. Judge Jean-Baptiste eventually returned to his adopted hometown in Evanston, Chicago, in Illinois, and enrolled in law school in 1986, 12 years after college. With a full-time job as the executive assistant to the president of Malcolm X College, a city colleges of Chicago, and an active family, he graduated from Chicago-Kent College of Law in 1990. In 2001, he became the first Haitian American elected in the state of Illinois as alderman/city councilman of the city of Evanston, and for 3 consecutive terms, serving 10 years on the city council. Beyond his regular duties as a municipal legislator, he advocated for equity in the city administration in hiring practices for police officers and firefighters. In March 2011, he became the first Haitian American to be sworn in as judge of the Illinois State Supreme Court. Subsequently, he waged a hard-fought campaign to hold on to his seat as judge and was victorious in the primary and general election of 2012. He's currently a family law judge. Judge Jean-Baptiste has always maintained his activism. He's currently a member of the NAACP, and he's a founding member and past president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste.
I've always operated on the basis of need to know. So sometimes after a while, people learn a lot about you. But there's still stuff to talk about. So thank you very much for that introduction. Some of the other work I think that might not have made the bio is the deep involvement in the Haitian community and Haitian activism, the Haitian movement. And so I know that with this conference, first of all, let me say thank you for Northeastern University, Northeastern Illinois University's Center for Genocide, Human Rights Research in Africa and the Diaspora, and for this initiative. The theme of the conference, from roots to reparations to building trust, took some reflection on my part, because I would think that roots referred to the source of the harm, to those who did the harm, and for the victims who need repair, reparations, and that beyond repair, that there may be an opportunity to build trust with the harming agent. You know, my analysis and my observation of what's been going on in the world, the reality is that the entity that has caused the harm to us has worked very, very hard to set up the external condition for the victims to end up trusting this victimizer through force, propaganda, manipulation, divide and conquer, the recruitment of neo-colonialists to make sure that the victims never really stand up to fight back, to be successful, to win the repair that they are due. Everywhere that there's an intersection between Africans, people of African descent, and Europeans, it is the same pattern. I'm talking about those in power, the forces, nations, et cetera, et cetera. On an individual basis, that's not the issue that I'm talking about. My particular attention has been focused on Haiti, what's been going on there, its history, and the contemporary situation that Haiti faces. All of you already know the history, but for those of you who do not know, it was in Haiti, and I would say that Haiti was Africa's first child born alive in the diaspora. It was there, after having labored over centuries of enslavement, that the Africans, under the leadership of Boukman, had pulled together and called for shifting of the worldview. Boukman, if you guys knew, the brother who just introduced me is from Jamaica, so he probably is familiar with Boukman. Boukman was an African enslaved who was in Jamaica, who came to Haiti, transferred through, we know, the commerce, the slave commerce. And Boukman called on the enslaved Haitians, enslaved Africans at that time, to shift their paradigm in terms of the worldview. He said in a major gathering at Bwakaima, and some people interpret Bwakaima as Bwakaimamna, near the home of the Imam. So there's all kinds of interpretation. Anyway, Boukman, who himself was a spiritual leader, called on the Africans to disregard and reject the images of the gods that the enemies have ingrained into them. He called on them. He said that that particular God wants you to continue to be enslaved and to serve a master that kills you, maims you, rapes you, and does everything that is inhumane. But your God called on you to stand up and fight back and demand a transformation of your situation. So here it was in 1791, in the woods of Bwakaima, that there was that kind of call to respond, to fight back. But that event is not necessarily although it is important. But we know, as I had heard a professor from Northwestern University say, for every day that the Africans were enslaved, they were fighting back, which is a different interpretation that we've historically heard, right? Historically, we heard that we have conceded to our situation, accepted our reality. But here it is that the call was that for every day that we were enslaved, we were fighting back. And Boukman had called on the African people who were enslaved in Haiti to stand up and call it like it is and shifted the paradigm and say, your God doesn't call for you to submit to these atrocities. Your God calls for you to fight back. And so it begun in a stormy night that the Africans launched a movement to fight back. And we know that throughout that history, Toussaint Louverture came to the forefront. And Toussaint was a negotiator and a leader, an extraordinary military strategist who took on the French, who took on England, Spain, and continued to advance the struggles of the Haitian people. But we know, we understand that nothing is neutral in that fight. And so the French occupiers, the enslavers, set up an ambush Toussaint and took him away to Fort de Joux in France, where he died in a cold prison. But before Toussaint was taken away, he said to the slave masters that you may cut off the roots, you may cut off the trunk of this tree of liberty, but you can never uproot the very roots of that of the fight for liberty, and it will regrow and it will face you in a different way to advance the call of liberty. And so here comes Dessalines, right, who was Toussaint's a lieutenant, a general in Toussaint's army, who understood the contradiction between the enemies and the people. And Dessalines, who took over the fight, called for cut off their heads and burn their homes. Look, I'm telling you what it is, what the historical issue is. And so don't go say the judge said cut off people's heads and burn their homes. So Dessalines then engaged in a process of an uncompromising fight for liberty and to eradicate the system of slavery that had taken roots in Haiti. And in the process, these individuals were able to build relationships among each other, because we understood that in the context of enslaved environments, that you had not only the Africans who were being replenished, but also the mulattoes who were being born of Europeans and African women. And so different interests had developed over that kind of period of time, because the mulattoes, for the most part, in many different situations, had a stake in the status quo. Many of them had gotten educated. Many of them had the privilege of being propertied in many situations. And so, but they understood that they could never achieve full liberation if the French enslavers continued to be in power. So Dessalines, Pétion, and various others were able to build alliances between the mulattoes and the Africans to go ahead and intensify the struggle to overthrow the French enslavers. And so that's how it came to pass. There's a significant crossroad in November 18, 1803, where there was a significant determinative battle where the Africans were finally victorious and they kicked the French out of the nation. And we understood that the background of this is, you know, Napoleon and all the rest, all of the interests who had rallied themselves to put down this rebellion, this fight, this war, this resistance, because they had perceived it as being unnatural. Often they would say that this was a virus that had caught these Africans, such that they were pushed to a point where they thought that they could be liberated and be full human beings. We know that the theoretical, that racism has always been a methodology to make sure that is excessive exploitation of Black labor and labor of other people. So they were able to kick the French out. And in the process, the new nation was declared on January 1st, 1804. And I won't even tell you what the Africans said at the time that they declared independence. At the time that they declared independence, it was clear as to who was the friend, who were the friends and who were the enemies. And so they made sure that all who were there understood that. They called for the French not to put their foot back on the soil of Haiti. They called on any Africans, anyone who had come into the nation of Haiti, they would declare them Haitians and free. They also began to build alliances with Simon Bolivar in Latin America to help liberate those nations, Venezuela, Bolivia, and others, and had called on them as the only compromise that they liberate their enslaved Africans. That is the basis upon which the leadership of the Haitian Revolution will provide some assistance to them. And we also know, as a result of the defeat of the French, they had to sell Louisiana to North America. And Louisiana, the territory which now occupies 19 states, would have enriched and enlarged the United States. Nevertheless, United States understood that its interests, the leadership of the United States, understood that its interest was to suppress the revolution. And so they did not recognize Haiti for 58 years. They organized an embargo and tried to push this nation out of existence. So Haiti came up really stifled and under the weight of all of those that they could organize. And it was only on the eve of the Emancipation Proclamation in the United States that Haiti was finally recognized by the United States, because the intent then, Lincoln contemplated the removal or the exodus of the Africans from North America. But having done that, when we talk about reparations, when we talk about different issues of what it takes to build trust, the French themselves had lived, almost 1 out of every 8 French person depended on the riches that were being generated from Haiti for their livelihood. And so France refused to accept the liberation of Haiti. France organized itself and pulled together an armada of ships, and in 1825, invaded the waterways of Haiti and demanded reparations. And the leadership of Haiti at that time, under Boyer, made that kind of compromise and agreed, under the gun, to pay this extortion of 150 million French gold bullion to France as reparations to the slave masters. And so it took Haiti from 1825 to 1947 to repay this ransom. And in the process had to borrow at very usurious kind of rate money from the United States, from France, from banks, in order to meet that obligation. In the meantime, beyond this period where Haiti has had to fight for that and it was under an embargo, remember in 1915, the United States invaded and occupied Haiti. They invaded and occupied Haiti, and at the point that they came in, they were already very antagonistic towards Haiti because they didn't think that these Africans were worthy of full recognition as being human beings. They not only came in, but they stole the content of our treasury. They took that away. They rewrote our Constitution. They imposed a new military that was beholden to them only, to the United States only, such that for some subsequent years thereafter, Haiti experienced coup d'etat after coup d'etat after coup d'etat, 38 coup d'etat in its existence. And so the consistent meddling, the consistent interference led to some of the consequences that we see today of Haiti needing to be repaired, but being under the boot of the victimizers. And it's been that kind of situation. And beyond that time, everybody understand that after the occupation, Haiti itself, at a significant point in its history, beyond the various coups d'etat that shook, that destabilized its attempt to govern itself, we have the ascendance of the Duvalier regime. Papa Doc and Baby Doc came to power at a time when the United States the Cold War was going on. There was a conflict with Soviet Union, Cuba was right there. And so the United States was very vigilant and used all of its manipulative abilities to make sure that Papa Doc stayed in power and they supported him in terms of his oppressive measures. During that period of time, we began to see the flight of Haitian brains all over the world. A lot of Haitians went to the Congo. A lot of them went to Canada. A lot of people came to the United States because dissent was not accepted. And during this period of time, you had a lot of people who got executed, who were in prison, and many of these brothers and sisters are now in their latter part of their lives, and have not had an opportunity to rebuild and reconnect with their country on a permanent basis. Because remember, beyond the Papa Doc and Baby Doc imposition, you have, in 1986 was when, well, Papa Doc came in power in 1957. He was there, he died in 1970, and before he died, he appointed his son as president for life. And so Baby Doc came to power and stayed in power until 1986, when mass rebellions and struggles from throughout, whether in Haiti, outside of Haiti, pushed him out of power. And it was the United States who came and got him, sent a plane to get him, because he was a servant of the United States. 1986, when that happened, February 7th, 1986, the Haitian people thought that they had finally liberated themselves. And you guys recall this young priest, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who came to prominence at that time. And it so happened to be, he was elected in 1990, and Baby Bush was in power at that time. And Baby Bush leveraged everything. Papa Bush was in power at that time and leveraged all of the power that it could, because Aristide was a liberation theologist who came through and demanded full liberation of his people and criticized the oppression and exploitation that the United States had imposed on Haiti and the limitations that it had imposed. And so 9 months after he came to power, and he was elected with almost 90% of the population of the electorate, and he was overthrown 9 months after coming to power. Papa Bush and all the rest of them had characterized him as somebody who was demonic, had mental problems. And we know anytime a liberator comes to power to lead our movements, they find a way to characterize this individual in all kinds of ways and organize themselves to destroy and undermine and overthrow him. So he was overthrown. There was a coup d'etat at that time, a bloody coup d'etat that drove out and really diffused the movement that had brought about the liberation of Haiti from the dictatorship. People were dispersed all over the place. You all remember Guantanamo, where, you know, when our people were running and fleeing from Haiti from the coup d'etat leadership of Raoul Cedras and Michel Francois, that, you know, the United States would put all kinds of blockades in place and eventually directed them to Guantanamo. And ultimately, that phase of the struggle was resolved through a lot of push that was international to try to restore Aristide to power. And Bill Clinton came to power after Papa Bush. And there were, as a result of the movement that many of you were involved in, Haiti, Jean-Bertrand Aristide was returned to Haiti in 1994. He came back in 1994, but many folks thought that a lot of the fire was diminished. And whether he found a way to manipulate the situation, whether it was just the pressure, anyway, he was back. Having come back, he organized election, and that was the period of time from 1986. Haitians had finally come together and said, look, you know, there will be no more president for life. They organized a democratic process. They established a new constitution, and the people were trying to exercise that. So when Jean-Bertrand Aristide came back, he came back and organized a subsequent election. And so we had some successes from that standpoint in terms of being able to engage for the first time in the process of democratic exercise. So election brought in René Préval, who was a prime minister to President Aristide, and President Aristide was subsequently elected after Préval's term, because you're supposed to only do 2 terms in your life, but you cannot be consecutive. So when President Aristide came to power, President Aristide called for restitution of that debt that we had paid France. That money, by now, actuary evaluation concluded that it was in the $20 billion of value. And once again, because of that cutting edge demand, Canada, France, United States organized themselves, again, rallied themselves and put out their manipulative effort to overthrow President Aristide a second time. The process itself, France was intimidated by that call. That call was on the radio all the time. We want our money back. But the compromise was that the United States now comes, Baby Bush, Condoleezza Rice, and Colin Powell and them, you know, they concluded that, you know, Jean-Bertrand Aristide could not continue to be in power making that kind of demand. And so he was once again overthrown. Subsequently, there was a caretaker government that was put in place. Again, the movement was attacked, dispersed. A lot of people went into exile, but it again diminished that kind of movement that was calling for reparation, that was calling for redress from that kind of historical wrong that was done against the people. Subsequently, the country went through a number of other elections, but at every point, the United States had its grifts, fangs, all up in our business. Even when many of us who were behind the popular singer Sweet Mickey, Michel Martelly came in power. He was elected, but it was after Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State at that time, decided that he was more suitable for the United States than those who were leading, who were gotten the legitimate finalists in the election of 2011, 2010, 2011. Once again, it was that kind of manipulation, right? And Haitians who had observed that kind of activity on the part of the United States were furious about that. But again, the instability in governance made it that we were not able to recover, to rebuild at the level that we needed to. The lesson for all of this is, and we today, recently, we know that a year and a half ago, Jovenel Moïse was assassinated while in his bed in his room. Again, the attack, the inability of the nation to move forward through stable governance to try to rebuild its society. Haiti itself, people, is extremely impoverished. People are poor and hungry. The statistics, we know, whether it's healthcare, is there something I said or something? Well, all of the indices of health, human quality of life are at very low level. A lot of the professionals have left the nation, gone to the metropolis to try to make a living. And because of the impoverishment, parasitism has set in where a lot of our people are at each other's throat, especially the youth, which is about 54% of the population is under 25 and under. So with the lack of hope, a lot of people are leaving. People go to Chile, they go to Brazil, they come to the United States if they can, they go to Canada, they go all over the place. But the future of Haiti is tied to whatever stable governance can be accomplished. Right now, after the assassination of Jovenel Moïse, we have in the United States decided to support the Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, who was not elected, didn't go through the process. We no longer have any elected officials in the country. All of that has been phased out because of lack of exercise of the democratic process. So Haiti has about close to 600 elective posts, whether it's at the municipal levels, whether it's national level, regional level, departmental level, but now it is at the point that it's under the dictate of one individual who is supported by the United States. Haiti is a captive nation in the grips of the United States. Everything that is done, and the thing about it, people, it is demeaning and disrespectful, because U.S. sends little junior emissaries to Haiti all the time to talk to the people they perceive to be leadership, who have not had any education about what's going on in Haiti other than the State Department report that they may have reviewed, they may have read. But they're treated with such deference, relatively speaking, to, in many cases, to Haitians who have been in the diaspora. And I don't know what happens in other African nations, but there's been a reticence on the part of Haitians inside the country to embrace and build a broad movement to try to bring about a better situation for the nation itself. So when we talk about the issue of reparations and roots, what is it again? From roots to reparation to building trust. I guess in a sense, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because many of you probably interpret it differently. We can never coexist in a way that is beneficial to Africans and Europeans in the context of building the future, unless there's repair. I don't know whether you know that the entire Anglophone Caribbean have united around their demand for reparations from England. And they are moving forward, they're back and forth, they're articulating processes to try to bring resolution. But we know the riches that these people accumulate. You look at London, and then you look at any of our capitals, you will find it's blatant. They're not going to give up anything without sustained effort to bring about this kind of resolution. When we talk about in Haiti, the fight for restitution is at a law, because that fire was really attacked when they overthrew Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 2004. Although Haiti understood, the masses understood that demand, but there is no momentum on the part of leadership to try to move that process forward. Recently, you guys probably had read the New York Times articles, very in-depth articles, over the lengthy exploitation of Haiti, although that consciousness has come to be made public. We don't have a movement to try to bring about resolution for that. In the United States, many of you know that there is a fight for reparations at a local level. I live in Evanston. I had been part of that effort since 2002, when I had come back from Durban, South Africa, for the World Conference Against Racism. We put forth a resolution in support of HR 40, and we put forth a resolution for the school districts, including Northwestern University and others, to teach the truth about our collective history. Recently, a couple years ago, a young leader, Robin Rue Simmons, put forth the demand for reparations as a result of the redlining that the banks, the government had sanctioned, and other institutions, and having identified the harm, and we were able to identify the sources of funding for to remedy the situation. And so there's real reparations going on in Evanston. We cannot say that it liberates people in terms of the inequities that they face, but that's a motion forward. We know that HR 40 has gathered significant grounds through its out of committee. Finally, after John Conyers had proposed it since 1989, but still a lot of work is to be done. There's enough signatories in Congress to go ahead for the House to be able to vote it forward, but no one expects that it will go anywhere in the Senate. There's a hope that Biden will sign some kind of executive order. And what does this bill call for? It calls for the study of the consequences, the impact of slavery upon African Americans, and what remedies should be put in place to rectify the situation. So I'm back to that beginning theme to say that our fight is endless until we're able to rectify the inequities that have been created by the enslavement of our people over some 400 and some years. It's clear. But we have to understand too, our fight is what has shaped the world right now. We're no longer in 1492, we're no longer in 1619. We're on the cutting edge of shaping this nation. And by being on the cutting edge and advancing and pushing forward, we do engender the Trumps and the others who stand up, and the DeSantis, who stands up and say, look, you can't teach Black history, you can't teach that, you can't teach the other, because it is detrimental to them. Understand that it's a zig and zag. It's a back and forth. How many minutes? 2 more minutes. Understand that it's a back and forth fight. So we shouldn't be surprised when there's a counter revolution to what it is that we're trying to do. We should sustain, we should continue, principally to continue to teach at home. You know, we can't take anything for granted that our kids, when they go out there, they'll be subject to any kind of fair treatment. We have to continue to fight to make sure that they're prepared to continue the fight. We have to prepare them for that. They need to understand history. In my culture, we used to, as kids growing up, your breakfast might have been a cup of coffee and a biscuit. We soaked the biscuit in the coffee, you know, sweet coffee. And I used to say to folks that, you know, my kids, I soak them in history so that you can never separate, just like you can't separate the coffee from the bread, you can't separate them from their history. So if you ever come to challenge them on the basis of who they are, what their mission is on life and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to knock them down. So it's important that we stand up, we continue to fight for reparations, and don't allow the temporary concessions to be the end all and be all. And to continue building trust. Trust is really about, you know, do we have true equality? Do I have what you have? Do you have what I have? If you have, you know, you exercising white skin privilege over me, you trying to, then there's no basis for us to build the trust that is necessary to continue to build society. It's a fight back, people. It's perpetual, and we have to make sure that we never forget where we come from and where we need to go. With that, thank you very much for having me.